On the spin, fires for the win! Got it!
The 30, the 20,
If he scores, it's over.
It's insane. One of the greatest postseason performers ever.
Here's Carroll. He's got it. And the Arizona Diamondbacks are headed to the World Series.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the AZ Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Humphreys. Going live as I do every Monday. I was on vacation last week, but we're back this week to catch up on everything that we missed. And let's get right into it. The Arizona Diamondbacks are on the struggle bus right now. They cannot hit the baseball. They just cannot hit the baseball. Right now, if you look at Fangraphs, the Diamondbacks are last in slugging since May 1st. They're last in average since May 1st, in batting average since May 1st. And they are last in batting average with runners in scoring position since May 1st. This offense is in an absolute free fall. There's a lot of talent on this roster, but none of it is producing. Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte, they've been up and down this season. Geraldo Perdomo has really regressed from how good he was last season. Gabriel Moreno has been their one bright spot on offense in the last 2 months, but unfortunately for Gabriel Moreno, he's hit into some costly double plays, especially the one that happened on Friday night that we'll get into. This Arizona Diamondbacks team lost to the Milwaukee Brewers in a very close, competitive 2-1 series, but the Milwaukee Brewers were just built to win these close games through bullpen, through small ball, through smart offense and defensive plays, and the Diamondbacks just have not been able to capitalize on the chaos that they create, and they have not been able to take home as many wins against above 500 teams as they should have. Right now, they're well below 500 against all teams that aren't the Rockies and the Giants, and unfortunately for the Diamondbacks, the rest of the season is going to contain teams mostly that aren't the Rockies and the Giants, and there's no series more important than their upcoming series against the San Diego Padres this week, and those and again a series against the Dodger to close out the first half of the regular season before the All-Star break. The Diamondbacks arguably could not have had a better time for the All-Star break, except maybe if the All-Star break was a week earlier than it is, because they could easily go 1-6 or 2-5 in their next 7 games against the Padres and Dodgers, and the season wouldn't be completely over, but it would be a mountain to climb. Whereas right now they're just one game below 500 at 44-45, and they have a little bit of ground to make up to get back into the wild card hunt. But if they were to have a really bad week this week, they're going to have a long ways to go. And it would appear that Mike Hazen would not necessarily be full selling near the deadline, because there are a lot of guys that are talented on this roster, or young guys on this roster that are having down years. But there are definitely guys that Hazen will be looking to offload, whether it's Zach Gallen or Lourdes Gurriel, or heck, I don't know if those guys have value, but at some point, those guys aren't going to be on the roster, whether it's at the trade deadline or it's at the end of the season. Maybe there's a few relievers that the Diamondbacks have to part ways with because of how well they've been playing, and the Diamondbacks just need to hit a slight reset or a full reset. We're gonna find out, but really, it's the It's the offense that has just had all the problems. Against the Brewers, the Diamondbacks did not give up more than 3 runs in, regular play. They gave up 4 runs in extra innings on Friday, but outside of that, they held the Brewers to 3 runs in every single game, in 9 innings played. So, pitching was not the concern, the bullpen was not the concern. It just comes down to the guys at the plate, and there's a few guys right now that the Diamondbacks are banking on being good hitters that just aren't, and it's Lourdes Gurriel, it's Pavin Smith, it's Adrian Del Castillo, it is guys like, Max Kepler, who they just brought in. Tommy Troy has been up and down. They just sent Luke James Groover back down to AAA Reno because he wasn't able to provide an offensive spark. Tim Tawa is hitting below 200 from the plate this season. And what makes it even worse is that the two outfielders that they traded this offseason both are above average hitters this season. They're both batting close to 300. Their OPS is both over 700, which isn't even that high of a bar to clear, but it definitely is for anyone on this roster not named uh, Corbin Carroll, Gabriel Moreno, and Cattell Marte. Nolan Arenado's gone back down to about a 700 OPS level hitter. Um, the Diamondbacks just don't have the ability to, when they're going against right-handed pitching, they just are struggling. Even and they're struggling against left-handed pitching too. But with how many right-handed bats they have on in the lineup, they're just struggling against right-handed pitching. And even Corbin Carroll, he has a lot of home runs against right-handed pitching, but he's only hitting about 200 batting average against right-handed pitching. So the 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 Diamondback struggles on offense um, started during the offseason when Mike Hazen thought that Pavin Smith and Adrian Del Castillo would fill the role of lefty DH, but obviously that just hasn't happened, and there are a fair amount of guys out there that were lefty DH type of players that could have come to the Diamondbacks during the offseason and provided a big spark. And it's unfortunate because the Diamondbacks just keep losing these close 1 run, 2 run baseball games, or they're below 500 in games and extra innings. And if they just had like 1 or 2 more solid hitters to just expound outside of the Diamondbacks' top 3 or 4 hitters, it would be huge. And we've seen, unfortunately, a lot of times that these Torey Lovello teams uh, start slow and finish fast. So is another fast finish is another fast finish in store for the Diamondbacks at the end of the season? I don't necessarily know about that, but it would not be surprising to me that if everything came together after the All-Star break and clicked. And as far as the trade deadline goes, I don't know if the Diamondbacks can wait for the trade deadline to make moves. Can they try and trade Pavin Smith somewhere for a team that can take a chance on him? Are there some guys in the farm system that they can trade to find a left-handed bat that can actually produce runs outside of Corbin Carroll? It's these things that the Diamondbacks are going to have to probably do to stay in the race well before the trade deadline and not at the end of July. Because right now it's July 6th and the Diamondbacks are spiraling. Corbin Carroll talked about they need to have a level of urgency, and that is true. They need to have the highest level of urgency, a level of desperation, a level of our season's on the line this week because honestly it is. And it's been building and building towards this week where if they had been able to win enough games before the final 3 series that included the Brewers, the Padres, and the Dodgers, if they had won enough games beforehand to stay in the wild card hunt, then they would be able to afford a bad stretch here. But they've already had a bad stretch. They've already lost 2 games to the Twins. They already got blanked by the Marlins. They already got blanked by the Rays. They unfortunately only got to play 2 out of the or 3 games against the Cardinals and won 2 of them, but weren't able to capitalize and win a 4th or a 3rd game against the Cardinals in their series. And so the Diamondbacks are in desperation mode. They have to be at the absolute top of their game this week, and and they're going to need guys like Zach Gallen to pitch better. They're going to need guys like Jose Cabrera to really come through and pitch better. Brandon Pfaadt is going to have to pitch well again. He pitched well in his first game back from AAA Reno, but they need the pitching to continue to play well like it did against the Brewers. They're only going to get 1 game of Eduardo Rodriguez before the All Star break, unfortunately, and they did not win yesterday's game on Sunday with him pitching. They uh, Torey Lovello sent him back out there for the 7th inning, and uh, Eduardo Rodriguez gave up a 2-run home run, and that was a ball game right there. That was a ball game right there. Then, believe it was Kevin Ginkel came in and gave up another run, and the Diamondbacks unfortunately were not able to get more than 3 runs across yesterday, and they lost 3-2. Friday, the game went to extra innings after Jose Cabrera was knocked out of the game early. But the Diamondbacks, thanks to Lourdes Gurriel's 3-run home run saving catch in the outfield, were able to tie the game and send it to extra innings where Gabriel Moreno probably should have, in most situations, bunted, but because of his injuries, because he's not a very good bunter, he's not a sacrifice bunter, and because he's your best hitter over the last 2 months, Torey Lovello decided to let him hit, and it was a double play because they intentionally walked Carroll the previous at bat, so there were 2 on, no outs, and then Gabriel Moreno hit into a double play, leaving Geraldo Perdomo at third base with 2 outs, and then Lourdes Gurriel, as he is so prone to do, popped it up, and the Diamondbacks could not score the game-winning run in that inning, and then Ryan Thompson completely melted down in the top of the 11th, and the Diamondbacks, bottom of the order, was not able to produce anything to truly get any spark. They did score 2 runs in the bottom of the 11th, but it was too little, too late in that game. Then on the 4th of July, Saturday, the Diamondbacks somehow won a game where they were out hit 12-4. And according to some baseball tracking websites, it gave the Brewers a 95% chance or 95% deserving to win rate, and the Diamondbacks just 5%. So a lucky game there for sure. But Merrill Kelly pitched a really solid outing, going a full 6 innings, only allowing 2 runs, excuse me. And then Paul Sewald gave up 1 run, but still completed the save as the Diamondbacks won 4-3. And then, as I already talked about before, yesterday's game on Sunday was just a brutal gut punch because the Diamondbacks led 1-0, and they had 6 balls hit 100 miles per hour or higher, and they all went for outs. They left 11 guys on base. They were terrible again with runners in scoring position. They got a lot of walks. Another thing that continues to frustrate me about this Diamondbacks team is that and this is according to Jack Summers, they swing the least at pitches in the middle part of the plate, which is just it just is head scratching. I know they want to take pitches, but if it's in that middle area of the plate that you have to swing, because those are the best pitches you're going to get, and time after time it's just frustrating to see the Diamondbacks not swing at those pitches and not connect on those pitches, even if they are producing more walks than they were at the beginning of the season. So where the Diamondbacks can go from there, uh, we've really seen all the options inside the roster or inside the organization. The Like we've seen Pavin Smith, we've seen James Groover, we've seen Ryan Waldschmidt, we've seen Tommy Troy, we've seen Jose Fernandez, all the guys that uh, could hopefully produce runs for us and at the major league level. We've seen all of them. We've seen all of them kind of blip positively, but ultimately they just haven't been able to stay consistent. We've seen Pavin Smith, we've seen Adrian Del Castillo, we've seen Max Kepler, who continues to struggle. Uh, both Max Kepler and Pavin Smith both had hard hit balls yesterday that went for outs. Pavin's was tragic because there was that ended in a double play where he hit the ball to right to the second baseman, and I believe it was Ildemaro Vargas was thrown out at second because he left the base thinking that 107-mile-an-hour ball was going to get out, and it didn't get out of the infield, and so he got doubled up because he didn't tag, and it's just more brutal plays like that for the Diamondbacks that just seemingly continue to go against them, and they're gonna have to figure out how to turn it around. And if they can't turn it around, then they're gonna be definitely some selling at the deadline. Although Reed Detmers is a guy that a lot of people speculate that the Diamondbacks could try and trade for quality pitcher um, that would lengthen out the lengthen out the pitching rotation and would be just a good add. So we'll see if the Diamondbacks try and do that or not. But it's just frustrating. And it's just frustrating when you go against a team like the Brewers who spend similarly to you, but the way that they're able to develop pitchers, they have the best farm system in baseball. The way they're able to develop talent, the way the organization runs, it just top to bottom is like the best run organization in baseball. The Dodgers are right there too, but they have a lot more financial ability than the Brewers do. And the Brewers, despite having the financial limitations, they continually have one of the best rosters and the best farm systems in baseball. And I'm just jealous as a Diamondbacks fan. I just wish that we were actually able to develop pitching talent like the Brewers and uh, develop some of the high level star hitters that the Brewers have as well. But we don't. And that's tough. All right. Let's talk about the Phoenix Suns and their offseason. The Phoenix Suns made a lot of offseason moves. They made a trade for Miles Bridges that included Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, and the 2033 first round pick, unprotected, for Miles Bridges, and a 2029 first round pick and a marginal second round pick that will most likely be in the 50s. So there's three things that we have to talk about with this move. It's the Miles Bridges off court incidents. It's the on court fit of Miles Bridges, uh, and it's the value that you place on that 2033 pick. And if the Suns again got fleeced by the Hornets in another deal. So let's start with the off court incident. So back in 2022, Miles Bridges was arrested for domestic abuse on his wife in the presence of his children. He pled no contest to the charges, which is not an admission of guilt, but uh, not not an innocence, not a sounding. It's not innocence either. So he missed an entire season um, solving these legal issues and pleading no contest. And then recently in 2024, there was an alleged incident where he violated the restraining order against his ex-wife, where he was throwing golf balls um, at her car or I can't remember if it was golf balls, but he was throwing things at her car, and that was later thrown out in court because her testimony um, had some uh, conflicting evidence in her testimony. But overall, just it's just not a good situation, especially for a Suns team that says that they value the character above character above everything else in the organization, and then going out and trading for Miles Bridges, who has a history of domestic violence, is kind of contrary to what the Phoenix Suns organization has said that it stands for and said that it values. So there's conflicting evidence there about the Phoenix Suns and Miles Bridges, and um, there are such thing as second chances where Miles Bridges ultimately, does he deserve a second chance? I am not I am not knowledge I don't have enough knowledge of the situation to know truly whether or not he deserves a second chance or not. And and as unfortunate as the situation is, it's something that Suns fans are going to have to um, try and live with or try and get over, or not. If this type of move causes you to not watch the Suns as much going forward, then I can't blame you there. It's definitely conflicting because it's hard to root for a guy like Miles Bridges who has that um, history and a history of domestic violence. And um, do I wish the Suns, even if I do believe that it's a good on court fit for the Suns, do I wish they had made the trade? I absolutely do not wish that they had traded for Miles Bridges solely for the off court issues. Hopefully that's behind him. Hopefully he's um, made amends and is a completely changed person. And we'll see how the Suns uh, decide to handle this once this trade goes through and they have the press conference and everything is official. We're going to see how the Suns decide to handle it. And I think that is going to be a real telltale sign of whether or not this is this is going to be a good move or not for them and the image that it puts on this organization. A few other details: Miles Bridges is a Michigan State um, alum. He only went there for 1 year, but he is connected to Matt Ishbia through that. Um, so yeah. Now let's get to the on the court fit of Miles Bridges in a Phoenix Suns uniform next to Devin Booker, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, Mark Williams, Luke Kennard, who they just signed, Pat Spencer, who they just signed, Colin Gillespie, Jordan Goodwin. Look, there are some things with Miles Bridges that are positives, and I think make the trade worth it. He's a big physical forward who the Suns just haven't had, that can rebound, that can attack the basket and put pressure on the rim. He's a decent secondary ball handler. And if you believe that Jalen Green is, best served as a six man or uh, maybe best fit on a different team outside of the Phoenix Suns, then I kind of think that that's what's going to happen. I think Jalen Green, his days are probably numbered in a Suns uniform. With this trade of Miles Bridges, I think the Suns like probably the fit of Booker, Bridges, and Brooks more so than they like the fit of Booker, Green, Bridges, and Brooks. But we'll see. We'll see if Jalen Green is traded in the next calendar year or if they think that a bunch of these score first guys are going to be able to fit together. It's going to be interesting to see the kind of play style that they have. And I think that's what gets me excited the most is how aggressive and how fast this Suns team is going to play in transition. Miles Bridges is a great player in transition, very athletic. He'll bring an element the Suns have sorely missed since, I don't know, Kelly Oubre, where Miles Bridges is a guy who is going to attack the rim. He's going to try and dunk it. We're going to see a few posters this year for Miles Bridges. We're going to see a lot of alley oops this year for Miles Bridges. It's going to be fun to see Miles Bridges play in a Suns uniform if you can get over the off the court incidents. I think he brings a level of excitement and ferocity that this Suns team kind of needs. Not that they're missing the hard nosed, gritty, in your face kind of style. Miles Bridges only adds to that. He definitely adds to the Dylan Brooks and the Jordan Goodwin in your face. But where Bridges has struggled is being a chaos creating defender. He is not really good at creating deflections. He's not really good at creating steals or blocks. Royce O'Neal was much better at deflections and blocks, but maybe potentially in Ott's system, they'll be able to get the best version of Miles Bridges uh, as as an off-ball defender, as an on-ball defender, as a guy who can be active and really hone in the defensive instincts to become a solid defender, or he might just be an okay to adequate defender. But it's the rebounding, which hopefully Bridges is able to up his rebounds because uh, Jordan Goodwin is a better rebounder than Miles Bridges, just straight up. But hopefully Bridges can up his rebounding production, especially on the offensive end, with the focus that the Suns have on that. We're really banking on Bridges taking a step in the Jordan Knott school of basketball, whereas he was playing in Charlotte and they played fast, but they didn't play a whole lot of defense and they didn't do a whole lot of the little things that the Suns did last season that made them so good. If Bridges can come in and he can offensive rebound and he can get create deflections and do all the little things that the Suns need all of their guys outside of Devin Booker to do really, then it's a great trade. It's not just a good trade, it's a great trade. If it's a good trade, it means Bridges is going to be, in my opinion, he'll probably be the second leading scorer next to Booker. And then you have Green and Brooks who will kind of compete for that third spot, that third leading scorer spot. Where this trade has me concerned is the shooting aspect. Miles Bridges is a career 33% three-point shooter, and it's not like he's taking a ton of threes off the dribble or off of movement. These are mostly spot ups that he's taking. So he's not that great of a shooter, and so how the Suns are going to figure out the spacing is going to be interesting because Devin Booker is not a high percentage three-point shooter. Jalen Green is not a high percentage three-point shooter. Dylan Brooks has shot well from three in his career, but he is not like a knockdown sniper shooter. They got Luke Kennard. They have Colin Gillespie, who are two of the best shooters in the NBA. But in that projected starting lineup with Booker, Green, Brooks, Bridges, and Mark Williams, where is the shooting coming from? The Suns are banking a lot that Devin Booker and Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks are going to be able to shoot high 30 to low 40% percentage from three next season, which is a tall, tall task for Booker, who has declined in his 3-point shooting the past three seasons, as we've talked about before on the podcast. Jalen Green is not an efficient 3-point shooter. Maybe he could be a 40% 3-point shooter if he eliminates a lot of the off the dribble step back threes and he's more of just a quick catch and shoot or drive to the basket kind of guy. Maybe his percentage can get up to around 40%, but just with his shot selection alone, there's no way Jalen Green is going to be a 40% shooter from three. Same with Dylan Brooks. He'll take a lot. He'll go 2 for 10 some nights and he'll go 5 for 10 some nights. But it's going to be really interesting to see how Jordan Knott is able to maximize the starting the starting lineup consistently. I imagine that if there are going to be some tweaks, it'll be moving Grayson Allen or Luke Kennard into the starting lineup for maybe probably Jalen Green. Jalen Green right now is got the bullseye on his back as far as his role might be best served as to come off the bench and lead the second unit in scoring, and let Luke Kennard or Colin Gillespie play with the starters just to add an element of shooting that this Suns team is going to desperately need. Now, the final part of this Miles Bridges trade is the 2033 first round pick. Now, the Suns were able to trade this pick for less than a week, and they traded it in a week. And it just shows that this organization does not value first round picks at the level that a lot of other teams do. And I think one, it shows that the value of Royce O'Neal, Grayson Allen, um, just was really low, and so they probably had to attach a first round pick to get this deal done. And that 2033 pick, because it's so far in the future and because the Suns' future is so mortgaged for right now, it looks like the Suns are just going to trade first round picks uh, until the end of time. Like, I don't know if the Suns are ever going to actually make a first round pick in the NBA draft that doesn't require them having to trade up, trade players. Like, I think they're just going to trade first picks as soon as they get them and just keep mortgaging the future down the road. They're basically banking on the fact that as long as they keep mortgaging the future down the road, that they're always going to be a at least a playoff team, and they're never going to tank. Something that Ishbia said, and something that he appears to be uh, standing by as of right now. But they've traded the 2031 pick and the 2033 pick in the last few seasons, and the return on investment has not been to the level that you would want for trading picks that far in the future that are so valuable. But the Suns honestly just don't care. They just think that they're going to be like the 7 seed. I think they're hoping that what they did this year is going to be kind of the floor for the future, because I think Ishbia thinks as long as they keep trying to win games, that all that they're going to be able to get a playoff spot every year, just because so many teams are trying to tank. But we'll see with how the lottery changes, if Ishbia and Brian Gregory are right to bank on the picks just not being that valuable down the road, because it's going to hurt if in a few years that Jazz, I believe the Jazz have the 2031 Suns pick and the Hornets have the 2033 Suns pick. It's going to hurt down the road to see those picks go high in the lottery. Uh, and the Suns not have them, especially if Miles Bridges doesn't pan out. And the Suns traded that 2031 pick for multiple worse first round picks, and uh, it just hasn't panned out so far at that pick either. So if either of those picks end up in the lottery, the Suns are gonna it's gonna be a bad day for the Suns organization, and hopefully the Suns maybe start valuing picks more in the future. I just don't know if that's gonna happen. Um, I think first round picks, for the most part, if they're not lottery picks, are not that valuable. But at the same time, the Suns, I wish they would try and at least like put some protections on these picks. Can we get a top 4 protected, top 5 protected, top 10 protected, top 1 protected? Like, can we? I just don't understand why the Suns don't try, and maybe they do. Maybe they do try and put protections on these picks, but a unprotected first round pick that far in the future is so valuable, and it should probably fetch more in return than Miles Bridges. But I think it was the contracts of Colin Gillespie, or excuse me, of Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal that kind of made that 2033 pick worth the gamble, in my opinion. I mean, if you're If your goal is to compete in the next 2 to 3 seasons around Devin Booker, then you kind of just have to do it and hope that it doesn't bite you in the butt later. Uh, and for me, this is kind of how I see the Suns going. So, with the Suns moves that they're making, there's quite a bit of talent on the roster. You can argue Jalen Green's talent versus where he actually is as a player right now. You can argue Mark Williams, same thing. You can argue Miles Bridges' talent versus the player that he is right now. But arguably, the Suns have just a much more talented roster than they did 2 seasons ago. R- Um, Even with Booker and Kevin Durant, everything else on that roster was not good, just not good at all. And now the Suns have like a really, really talented group of players you can get excited about, whether it's Kaman Malawach and Rasheer Fleming taking jumps in year two. Koa Pete's a first round draft pick. Um, Luke Kennard is a really, really valuable shooter and a guy that just as a valuable shooter to have a guy that can shoot that well from three. Obviously, Devin Booker is one of the top 15 to 20 players in the NBA. Hopefully, he can elevate himself into top 10 contention again. Dylan Brooks showed his ability as role players. You have Colin Gillespie and Jordan Goodwin, who showed that they can be extremely good role players as well. So the Suns have like a lot of talent on the roster that you can get excited about. But the problem is that there are a lot of other teams in the West that are talented too. And so we're going to find out in the next 2 to 3 seasons if this Suns team is going to be the Chicago Bulls in the East and they're just playing for the 8, 9, and 7 spots in the play in every year, or could this team potentially become the Indiana Pacers, where no one was really, really high on the Pacers roster. There wasn't a ton of like top level talent on the Pacers roster. And then all of a sudden they went to the NBA finals and everyone realized, oh man, like they don't have the upper echelon superstars, but they just have 10 guys who are super, super talented that buy into the Rick Carlisle style of play, that buy into doing all the little things right, playing extremely fast, playing extremely hard. Um, and then they had Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam. The Suns, it looks like, are trying to replicate what the Pacers did uh, a couple of seasons ago in their run. But with that Pacers run, you also have to remember that OG Anunoby and Jalen Brunson both got hurt in that series against the Pacers. And in my opinion, the Knicks would have likely beaten the Pacers in that series and probably gone to the finals in back-to-back seasons if they had beaten the if they had beaten uh if the Knicks had beaten the Pacers. And so you do obviously need some playoff luck, but that appears to be the route that the Suns are going down and mortgaging their future to try and be the 2024 2025 Pacers. We'll see if that gamble pays off or not. It probably won't. It probably won't. The Suns are likely not going to make another NBA finals in Devin Booker's career unless things go really, really well for them. And it's more likely that they just end up being the Chicago Bulls or the Miami Heat of the East, where they're just constantly in that 7, 8, 9 spots in the play in and just kind of a middling team that isn't acquiring young talent at a high level, but also isn't winning at a high level. And that's the worst place to be in the NBA. And I hope for the Suns' sake that they can avoid that. But I think that's where they're at right now. So that's it for this episode of the AZ Sports Podcast. I hope you'll tune in next time, and I will see you guys later. See ya.